everybody. This is my second time recording this because I recorded like half of it one time and the volume just sounded like this the whole way through.
He told me that I'd be dealt with by Mrs. Hands if I tried to interfere with the road trip.
So yeah, that wasn't ideal. For some reason my mic that I use for recording is like really sensitive now, so if I talk close to it the audio sounds like really loud. So now I'm sitting like a meter away from my mic and hoping everything will be fine. But yeah, today I'm going to be reading Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Not My Roderick, which is a part of the Yogurtverse series. So make sure to go watch the previous episodes. I'll make sure to leave a link to the playlist in the description and in the pinned comment. Also, I am trying to reach 10k subscribers by the end of the year. So if you guys love Wimpy Kid content and would love to help me reach that goal, make sure to hit the subscribe button because I do read Wimpy Kid on my channel every week. Anyway, let's get straight into Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Not My Roderick.
Wednesday. I know I complained a lot about how hard middle school was, but high school is even worse. So much, in fact, that I haven't actually written in this thing for what feels like years just because of how overworked I am. Well, that and the fact that nothing's really been going on since the Mont Piers got arrested by Interpol and Albert Sandy left town without saying a word. Basically, I've just been hanging out with Rowley and Holly, and apart from the excessive amount of homework we've been getting, everything is fine. At least it was until now. I forgot to mention this earlier, but Roderick somehow graduated from high school. I thought for sure that he was going to end up at the local community college, but he managed to surprise all of us. I'm taking a gap year. I was pretty shocked that Roderick planned on spending an entire year volunteering and working, but then he told us that he wanted to see if his band could make it big within the next year, and that he only planned on going to college if his initial plan fell through. To put it lightly, Mom and Dad weren't impressed with Roderick's plan, resulting in a huge argument. In the end, Roderick packed up his drums and went to crash at Bill's place. I haven't seen him since then, and I was not expecting him to return so soon. Why, hello, my dear brother. To be honest, I wasn't expecting Roderick to change his appearance either. He'd really grown his hair out, and he was a lot thinner than the last time I'd seen him. I guess he hadn't bothered with eating or getting haircuts since he was so preoccupied with his band, but it was still very strange. The only other thing I could gather from Roderick's time away is that he either crashed or broke his van, because he was very intent on begging Mum for money so he could buy another one. So, could I get some money to buy us a new van? Eventually, Mum reminded Roderick that since he took a gap year, he had more than enough time to get a job. Roderick then went down to the basement, where I thought he was going to stay for the rest of the day. Sadly, that was not the case. Usually, Roderick only comes into my room so he could screw with me, but this time he was just standing right behind me as I scrolled through social media. He was so quiet, I didn't realize he was there until he opened his mouth. Whoa, is that stuff real? In case you're wondering, I was looking at a photo of a girl dressed as one of the villains from the new Twisted Wizard game. I remember Roderick saying that cute girls only did this to get a ton of likes from losers like me, so who knows why he was suddenly interested in this stuff. Thursday. Although Roderick left me alone for the rest of last night, his behavior got even weirder. It all started this morning when I heard a knock at the door. I guess Roderick never told Bill where he'd gone because he came to our house to look for him. Morning. After Roderick emerged from the basement, I left him to work things out with Bill. Unfortunately, this resulted in a huge argument. Bill, I'm an inexperienced drummer and I can't even beat Rock Band. How do you expect me to continue like this? Rod, what happened to you? Thought we'd keep doing this for the rest of our lives. You used to be my friend. No, seriously, I can't do this anymore. Rock and roll is so last year, and I'd rather start a boy band or something. Bill took off as soon as he heard that, muttering something about the heart and soul of Loaded Diaper had died. I couldn't believe I just witnessed Roderick give up playing the drums and Loaded Diaper in favor of starting a boy band. In fact, I wasn't actually sure if I'd hallucinated the whole thing until I came home from school. Boy band tryouts downstairs. I didn't see Roderick for the rest of the day as he was in the basement judging the auditions. This meant that I had to spend hours listening to raspy-voiced idiots singing awful covers of already terrible pop songs. Tell me why I'm stuck. I'm not singing that, I'm sorry. On the plus side, I think I found something worse than listening to Loaded Diaper practice. It was almost midnight by the time Roderick picked out his members, though from what I could tell, they weren't exactly prime boy band material. I can't picture too many girls getting excited over Mr. Nern, Christopher Zeigel, and Eric Holber, but maybe Roderick's trying to find a new niche. Either that or he's so stupid he doesn't understand how boy bands work. Given everything else he's done lately, I suspect the latter. Friday. I barely got any sleep yesterday because Roderick and his new bandmate spent several hours trying to write a song before Dad finally kicked them out of the house at 2 a.m. As a result, I forgot to tell Rowley and Holly about Roderick, and I was in for a nasty surprise at lunch. Do you guys hear that there's going to be a live performance in the cafeteria? I crossed my fingers and prayed that Roderick and his new band wouldn't waltz in the middle of the cafeteria. Unfortunately, that's exactly what happened. "What's up, kids? Are you ready to rumble?" Roderick and his goons just then turned on some music and danced around. Though to be honest, their idea of dancing was pretty pathetic. Yo, 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 check it. Honestly, the whole thing was really boring, and I eagerly anticipated a teacher telling Roderick and his friends to leave. However, the performance was mercifully cut short after some guy ran up and pantsed Roderick. Hey! Roderick tried to chase the guy, but the teachers had learned about his plan and it was all over for him. Roderick and his goons were then escorted out of the cafeteria by a bunch of teachers. I'm not quite sure what happened next, but I'm pretty sure all 4 of them got permanently banned from the school's premises. Oh, and they ended up on this evening's news. No, seriously, can you imagine these guys showing up at your high school? I know, right? And we've received word that one of those guys is 32 years old. Yes, 32. Roderick always said he wanted to make it big on TV, but I don't think this is quite what he envisioned. Saturday. I spent all morning trying to find out why Roderick changed so much during his time away. I started off by looking in his room, but I didn't find anything of note in there, well, apart from a couple Playboys. Then I realized that Bill probably knew what happened to Roderick since they'd been living together for the past few months. I decided to see if I could call Bill, but I ran into Mom first. As it turns out, Mom won 2 tickets to the first annual Plainview Drag Night and a radio show giveaway, and she wanted me and Dad to have them. I told her that I wasn't interested in watching a bunch of fat guys in muscle cars revving their engines and driving in straight lines, but she said this was the perfect opportunity for some father-son bonding. Plus, she made it absolutely clear that Roderick would not be allowed to go if he showed up, as he was still grounded from yesterday. In the end, I couldn't find Bill's phone number, and I went over to Holly's to spend the rest of the day. Had I known what I'd see at the drag race, I probably would have stayed there all night. I should have gotten suspicious the moment I realized the drag race took place indoors. I wonder if they were using electric cars until I discovered that drag night had nothing to do with drag racing. As it turns out, this drag night thing was basically a competition for cross-dressers. That wasn't even the worst part. And here's our 4th contender for the night, Rodrick Heffley. I'm not sure if it was Uncle Gary as the announcer, Roderick competing as a drag queen, or a mix of both, but Dad decided to leave halfway through the qualifying round. To put it lightly, he was not impressed with drag night. That bastard's so gonna get it when I catch him. I wasn't quite sure if Dad was talking about Roderick or Uncle Gary, but I made sure to hide the wig I stole a while back. Now knowing Dad's opinion of crossdressers, I think it's best he never finds out about that. Sunday, Roderick ended up making the news again. Shocking victory at drag night. Roderick Heffley wins Plainview's first annual drag night by 98 points. Guess who decided to show up today? As soon as Roderick entered the house, he was told that he was grounded for 2 weeks for breaking into the school. Then Mom and Dad got into an argument about whether or not he'd be punished for taking part in a drag competition. I can't have my son keep tarnishing my family name in public. Frank, he's a legal adult. Surely you could have some freedom. Honestly, I'm not sure who I agree with. On the one hand, I wouldn't trust Roderick with anything, but on the other, he's far from the only idiot in the Heffley family. Mom and Dad's argument started to drag on, so I invited Riley and Holly to hang out at the mall. I thought I'd finally get a break from Roderick's antics, but I was very wrong. Psst, psst. I asked Roderick how he managed to sneak out of the house, and he said Mom and Dad were so busy arguing that they didn't notice him leaving. I told him to leave us alone and look at something himself, but he had other ideas. Once I get a new van, we could go to Players Expo again. Who's in? I never thought Roderick would nail the annoying little brother stereotype so well, but he did. In fact, I'm actually glad that Manny keeps to himself, as I don't know how I deal with 2 of these new Rodericks. It didn't help that he seemed to be making stuff up, like us going to Player Expo, this video game convention in Indianapolis. Pretty sure Roderick's never been out of the state alone, and I can't even see him going to anything remotely video game related. We all started to grow tired of Roderick pretty quickly, and I suggested we go home. But then Holly came up with an idea to get rid of him. Hey Roderick, have you seen these shirts? I think they'd look good on you. The shirts in question were pretty revolting, but Roderick agreed to try them on, and that was the last I saw of him. Sadly, it did not stop him from causing us trouble.
Apparently, Roderick liked those awful shirts enough that he decided to buy them, but he didn't bring any money with him, so he walked out of the store without paying. Hey! The last I saw of Roderick was him getting yelled at by the guy in the store and a mall cop. If he does get arrested for shoplifting, at least I'll get a break from him. After we got rid of Roderick, I asked Rowley and Holly for their opinions of him. Believe it or not, they actually made me realize something. Honestly, I'm not even sure if he's the same guy, unless he found a way to make his hair grow that fast in 2 months. Why is he trying to look like the big brother from the Diaper Hands movie? And that's how I ended up sitting down to watch the Diaper Hands movie for a third time. Seemed to drag along even more this time, but at least I was able to confirm my newfound suspicions that the idiot who followed us around the mall was not Roderick, but rather Diaper Hands' older brother. It almost made me feel bad for Diaper Hands until I remembered him freaking out over the diaper. I guess the apples don't fall far from the tree. Anyways, I only watched about half of the Diaper Hands before switching it off, as it was that bad. But I probably should have switched the TV to something else, as Manny ended up watching the rest of their movie. And to make matters worse, the movie seemed to have left Manny feeling inspired, because he then decided to draw some of the most disgusting scenes. At this point, I'd rather have Manny watch Roderick's horror movies instead of, well, this. I remember Roderick doing a science fair project on how movies affect people's minds, and after seeing this, I now know exactly how they work. On the other hand, I still know very little about where Diaper Hands' older brother came from, and what he did to Roderick or why he's here. All I can gather is that Preston Mudd's probably behind this, likely because he's mad at me for preventing Diaper Hands the movie from winning every award at the Oscars or something. I still think the movie would have failed without my interference, but some people just don't know when to give up. I just hope he doesn't replace my entire family tree with the Hands family. Monday. We've got a week off and I planned on tracking down Preston to interrogate him today. Unfortunately, I woke up to some strange blonde woman staring at me. Have you heard of the Great Hands family road trip? It took me a moment to realize it, but I was staring right at Diaper Hands' mother. I asked her how she got in the house, and then what she did to Mom, but she just summoned Mr. Hands to carry me outside. Mr. Hands then dumped me in the back of a minivan, which he and Mrs. Hands then started loading with all sorts of junk. And to make sure I didn't run off, they also stuck Manny and not Roderick back there to watch me. I was a little surprised that Manny hadn't been replaced, but I guess it makes sense that he seems to enjoy watching me suffer. Either that or he just wants to experience the Diaper Hands movie for real. Mr. and Mrs. Hands ended up spending an entirety loading the van and hitching up a boat. Once they were done, Mrs. Hands got behind the wheel and roared off. At this point, I did the only thing I could think of. The Diaper Hands' family is kidnapping me. Call the police, please. I'm not quite sure if Rowley heard me, but I know Mr. Hands did, because he told me I'd be dealt with by Mrs. Hands if I tried to interfere with the road trip. And that was basically it for the next hour or so. Mrs. Hands raced like a maniac until we were out of Plainview, at which point Mr. Hands took the wheel, and somehow it got even worse after that. You know how Rowley and his mom like to sing 99 bottles of beer on the wall during car trips? Well, the Hands family has a similar tradition, only even more annoying. Yo, I'll tell you what I want, what I really, really want. So tell me what you want, what you really, really want. That was the first time I'd seen a family sing-along made up entirely of outdated pop songs, and I hope it's the last. Honestly, I wouldn't mind going deaf if I never had to listen to stuff like this again. After what felt like a million years, Mr. Hands pulled off the highway, and I finally thought I'd get a chance to escape. But the Hands seemed to have anticipated this, as they didn't even bother stopping the van. Instead, they'd sent not Roderick shopping and drove in circles to make sure I couldn't get out. I was pretty worn out from being subject to Mrs. Hands' crazy driving and the horrible sing-along, but I still thought about jumping off the van while it was moving. Unfortunately, Mrs. Hands was watching me like a hawk the whole time, which caused me to chicken out. After not Roderick returned, the van took off again, and I was subject to yet another round of the Hands singing an awful pop song from 20 years ago. I was only spared when the van finally pulled out into the parking lot of a motel. As it turned out, all the stuff not Roderick bought was either unprepared or microwavable, and none of it was edible. Not that it mattered, since I wouldn't eat anything the Hands family gave to me. The Hands family went to bed without eating, which I found odd since some of them had eaten all day. I was starving and I ended up eating some hard pasta and cinnamon because that's all I could find. At this point, I think I'd literally lost my mind. Tuesday. I barely got any sleep last night, partially because I found it impossible to sleep in the same room as the people who abducted me, but mainly because of my attempt at sneaking out. Bubby's sneaking away! I guess it's hardly surprising that Manny's helping the Hands, since he's one of those people who'd openly betray their friends and family if it involves themselves getting spared. I really wish he'd kept his mouth shut, though, as I had to spend the rest of the night with Mr. and Mrs. Hands staring over me like vultures. It only got worse when the Hands decided to go up to a country fair, and they dragged me around on a dog leash. I swear this is the most embarrassed I've been in my entire life. I would have tried to run off again, but since Mr. Hands tied the leash around my neck, I decided not to risk it. Eventually, Mr. Hands and not Roderick dragged me back to the van, where I found out that Manny somehow won a pig. I remember Diaper Hands doing the same thing in the movie, and I wondered if this was all planned or simply a regular event at the fair. Speaking of which, I remember Preston having a pig in the house last summer, which made me wonder if this scene was based on his own experience. If there's one good thing about the pig, is that I played a key role in me helping escape the Hans family awful road trip. I never thought it would end this violently, but at least I got off in the end. I can't remember what happened after that, but I do know I managed to launch the pig into Mr. Hans' lap, where it went completely ballistic. Mr. Hans attempted to fend off the pig, but he ended up losing control of the van and crashing into a guardrail. It must have rolled at least 6 times before finally landing upside down in a ditch. It's a good thing all the hands were still unconscious when I escaped, as who knows what would have happened if they weren't. On the other hand, I was stuck on a highway in the middle of nowhere with no way home, so I did the only thing I could think of. Ultimately, my attempt at hitchhiking proved fruitless, and I got bored pretty quickly, so I ended up walking down the highway until I came across a gruesome sight. Not Roderick must have been ejected from the van during the crash, because I found parts of his body scattered all over the highway. That wasn't so bad until I noticed the wires protruding out of his limbs. Yes, the idiot who claimed to be Roderick was actually a robot. I wondered who could have done such a thing when I noticed a van identical to the Hanses pulling off the road. I thought the driver might have seen my hitchhiking sign, but once he got out of the van, it became obvious that he wasn't going to help me. "You're never going to win, are you, Greg? You're never going to let me win, are you, Greg?" Heffley. I asked Preston what he was doing here, and his reply was exactly what I expected. "Of course you had to ruin everything, you dolt. Why can't you ever leave Diaper Hands the movie alone?" "Well, if you hadn't used fake accounts to market the movie and had me kidnapped, maybe I wouldn't hold issue." "Listen up, you little bastard. Diaper Hands will rise, so will I. This movie proves that viral jokes are no laughing matter." Preston continued to rant and rave about the symbolism behind Diaper Hands, the movie, till the passenger door of the van opened and someone else got out. And believe me, I was expecting to see this guy even less. "Oh no, my beautiful androids, what happened to you?" Dr. Kagan started blabbering about how he'd reverse engineered the entire Hands family from some Alfredo dolls, and that I ruined his hard work by causing the crash. Preston then told me I was going to get it, but before I could find out what it was, help arrived. Before I could say anything, Bill opened the van's sliding door and pulled me into the back. I asked him how he and the other loaded diaper members found Roderick, and he said that Rowley tipped them off about Preston's place. I guess my plan worked after all. Apparently, Roderick's bandmates found him in Preston's basement, where he was being forced to package DVDs of Diaper Hands the movie. Seriously, why does everything Preston do have to be related to Diaper Hands? Everybody freeze! Anyway, Roderick said that the only reason he hadn't escaped sooner because Preston planted Dennis Dennard and Eric Glick in the room, and he'd been outnumbered 2-1 during his stay. Roderick also told me how he ended up in Preston's basement in the first place. He'd gone grocery shopping when Preston stuck up on him with a tranquilizer gun. I told Roderick what happened to Mom and Dad, but he said he never saw them in the basement. As it turns out, Preston or the Hands just tied him up and left them in the Manny's room. Well, I know what happened to Mom and Dad. I still hope Preston gets what he deserves for this. I mean, who knows what he could do if he remains free. Saturday. It's been a few days since I escaped the clutches of the Hands, and I have to say, things are finally looking up again. For one thing, Preston got arrested and sent to a maximum security prison, so I don't think I'll have to deal with the Diaper Hands movie anymore. What are you in for? Well, it all started when I made Diaper Hands the movie. In other news, Mom's been pretty torn up lately because Manny went missing. They never found him in the Hands' wrecked van, so I presume he escaped, though I'm not sure where he could have gone. Apart from that, everything's been going well. Sure, I've had a few nightmares about the Hands family, but at least I can rest assured knowing that they've been destroyed. The only other thing that happened is that Roderick moved back in with us. I guess Mom and Dad were more than willing to put up with him after not Roderick's antics, and to be honest, I can agree with them on that. I never thought I'd be happy to listen to Roderick practicing the drums, but after hearing Diaper Hands' brother's boy band auditions and the Hands family awful sing-along, I'd happily listen to just about anything else. I'd also like to say that I haven't told Roderick about all the stuff Diaper Hands' brother did under his name, because I managed to withhold it so far, but I'm bracing myself because I know he'll learn about it sooner or later. Anyway, that's the end. Hope you guys enjoyed, and make sure to check out the rest of the Yogurt Rip playlist, as well as this fanfiction up on screen right now, which is my personal recommendation. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to like, subscribe, and let me know what I should read next. Peace.